Hello, Ian. How are you?
Good evening, Mark. I'm very well. How are you? What's the
I'm all
weather
right.
like?
The weather is lovely. It's actually been a bit cold, but you can sleep at night, which is nice. When it's too hot, you can't sleep.
So when you say
It's
cold,
just
you mean you're
I had to
like
put trousers on.
27 degrees
I had to put
Celsius.
trousers on, and I had to put a jumper on a bit. But it was, I mean, it's lovely to be honest. It's actually
So,
just right, just right.
unlucky
Yeah.
that you have to
I was
put
saying
trousers on.
to because our mum and dad's here, and I was saying to mum and dad, is like, do you know anyone else that kind of escapes the UK summer, winter, and comes somewhere else? And they said no, don't. But they've done it for years. It's lovely, isn't it? I think they during COVID they had their first winter in the UK for a long time. It was a big shock. They were like, "What's this?"
Yeah. It's funny when you do leave the UK in the winter, you come back and think, wonder why we live here in the UK
It's a
in
lovely
the middle
place,
of the.
Ian.
It is
It's
a
a lovely
wonderful
place. You've got
place. There's
lots of
lots of
stuff. You've got lots of stuff you don't realise when you move away. You that you got in the UK, but
yeah.
yeah, you don't realise until you miss it. But then the same thing is like if I left New Zealand now, I looked in the UK, it'd be like, oh, we'd miss a lot of other stuff, wouldn't I? So
Yeah.
anyway, I digress. Today's podcast is the second domino in the dominoes of e-commerce. How many dominoes are there in? Five, four, six,
Six.
six
The
dominoes.
six dominoes of e-commerce.
Okay.
It's
And so last
almost
week we
like you've
did.
not mastered the six dominoes of e-commerce, Mark. Because every time I
It's,
say six dominoes of e-commerce, you say, what order are they in again?
yes,
And
true.
you came up with this. You came up with the domino.
I did come up with it, yes, but it's not something I've used in the book. It's a new concept, so I haven't memorized it, but it's good, and we'll go through it, and perhaps by the end of it, I'll know what they are. So the first domino we did. Why don't you just go over the first domino
Is
and then the domino we're going to do today?
it
Because
because
I've
you can't
forgotten the first
remember?
domino, pretty much.
I can't, honestly, the illusion of the Hammersley brothers is shattered.
I haven't had my cup of tea, so I've got no idea what it was. There was
It's
something
almost like
about.
when you try to do
Oh,
mental
it's the busy restaurant
maths.
test. It's a
The
busy
busy
restaurant
restaurant
test.
test. Yeah,
Yeah.
the busy restaurant test. So the busy restaurant test, which of course the first one is the busy restaurant test, which is positioning. And the idea is unless you position your e-commerce store correctly with the right message above the fold, people won't invest the time here. So they'll say, "Oh, I'm not going to find what I need. I'm going to go. I'm going to go off. I'm going to go back into Google or Instagram or Pinterest or wherever they come from." And so once you've got past that first domino, the second domino is what we call navigational flow. And that's really about trying to help them find a product. And obviously, depending on where they land, depends on where that goes. But that, in a nutshell, it would be the equivalent of going into a shop on the high street, a supermarket, let's say a supermarket would be an easier thing to do, and knowing that you have a rough idea that you want to buy a tin of tuna, and you're looking down the shop aisles and you're trying to find where the canned goods are. So there is a there is an assumption that you have an idea of what you want and you're going into the shop and you're looking for it, you're trying to find that way through. So if you're but the difficulty is, unlike a physical shop where you come in through the front door of the shop, because that's the only way you can get in and out of the shop, you come through the front door. Everybody comes through the front door, so it's controlled. That navigational flow is controlled. The difference of an e-commerce store is that we don't know exactly where they're going to enter the shop, because they're not all coming through the home page, which would be the equivalent of the front door. Quite often they might be coming straight to the product page through Google Shopping, and that's been a massive change, and we've talked about it for years and years and years and years, that they no longer come through the home page. The most popular landing pages tends to be, not for everybody, but more often than not, the most popular page that they land on is the product page. And that's because that's where a lot of the new advertising is coming from. So they don't come through the home page. So the product page is the new home page. And we've been saying that for years. I mean, probably for the last 7 years we've been saying that.
Hmm.
Still
I
some,
think the
I still hear people saying it for the first time, and they're like, it's some genius thing.
well, people still make the mistake. I think we talked a bit about that last week. But the thing that we want to sell when someone lands on the website is the forward click. and we need to make it more sellable than the backwards click. So say someone comes from Google Shopping, they click on a product, we want to click sell the next click, the next interaction with the page, rather than them going back to Google Shopping. So the example I always use is the first time I realized this was when I was looking for some Gore-Tex hiking shoes. I was on Google, I searched for Gore-Tex hiking shoes, and what came up was some Gore-Tex hiking shoes, and some of them were kind of like not Gore-Tex and maybe something slightly different. So I got a kind of smorgasbord of different shoes. I clicked on, I think it was Trek or something like Trek In or something like that. I clicked on that website. I went into that website, and then I saw...
You landed on a product page, didn't
So I
you?
landed on a product page, yes. I was on a product page. I was looking at a specific pair of shoes, and then it says, do you want to see all of our Gore-Tex shoes? And that was a better click for me to click on, because if I went back, I was seeing a collection of some Gore-Tex shoes, some non-Gore-Tex shoes, whereas that was a better click for me because that was more specific to what I was actually looking for. So that they sold me the next click, and I went in there. So what we're saying is that effectively what you've got to do is you've got to sell the next click better than their other option, which is either to click back to Facebook or click back to Google Shopping. And so, yes,
so
some people are going to click on the product that they want to see, and they're going to buy the product. But there's always those almost buyers who that product isn't quite right for, that we really want to get the money out of those people, because otherwise they're going to go back to the competitors. So effectively, that's what we're selling.
I think you're right. The nub of it is actually, you're absolutely right. The nub of it is ultimately the temptation to go back into Google or Pinterest or Instagram or wherever you've come from is so hard. It's huge. It's an overwhelming temptation to go back to where you were. Because you imagine, let's say you're in Google Shopping, you were scrolling through Instagram or Pinterest, and it's a fantastic array of multiple options. So you're clicking on one of those Google Shopping ads, for example, and you've got to do a better job of helping people find and continue that navigational journey to find the right product and category or product than going back to Google. And ultimately, we're trying to keep them sticking around. Now, the metric that we are trying to improve here ultimately is the add to basket rate. But there's one subtlety. It's the bounce rate or the engagement rate that we're really trying to influence here. So obviously in old days it used to be called bounce rate, and in new GA4 days it's called engagement rate. They did bring bounce rate back, but essentially we're trying to stop them just coming into the site and then clicking off and just disappearing back again. That's what we're trying to do. And the reason we want to do that is because if we reduce the bounce rate, we increase the add to basket. We increase the add to basket, we increase conversion rate, we increase return on ad spend. We increase return on ad spend, we can then pull the traffic lever. So where to start? So should we talk about the old bounce rates and the new bounce rates?
Yeah, maybe we should talk about the new KPIs.
We remodeled them, didn't we?
It has changed.
Can you remember what we remodeled them to? Because I have them right in front of me.
Oh, I was going to pull them up. Have you got them there?
You pull them up.
The old. Well, I've got to go and search for them in all the different workshops.
I thought you know them off by heart in your head.
I can't remember what they were before now. That's the problem. So if you've got them there, then let's go with that. Why don't you say what they were in GA3 and what they're now in GA4, and then we'll talk about why they've changed.
Yeah. Well, I will. I'll pull them up. Which, here they are. That didn't take that long. Oh no, do you know what I found? I found the old ones.
Why don't you talk about through the old ones whilst I try and find the new ones?
We could pause the podcast, or we could just carry on, in a kind of random way. The reason why I'm pausing is because my laptop exploded last week, and so I'm having to go onto Dropbox and find the new variant. I've got it now. Okay, so I've got to find it right. So the old bounce rates was overall if the site was bouncing less than 40% as an overall stat, it was about right. It was about okay. So as an overall, you look at your overall bounce rate, about 40%. But when we break that down, it was it should be, if they land on the product page, it should be bouncing less than 60%. So that was the old GA3. In new GA4, it should be bouncing less than 35%. And that was the new stat. Okay? So the product page in new GA4 should be bouncing less than 35%. So as a very quick glance, you can have a look at your landing pages. You can see which one's landing on your product pages, and the bounce rate should be, we want it to be less than 30%. We always expect some. The home page in the old GA3 should bounce less than 20%. And in the new GA4 should be bouncing less than 17%. And in the category page, I feel like I'm just reaming off stats now, but the category page should be bouncing less than 50% in the old GA3, and in GA4 should be bouncing less than 25%. So essentially, in new GA4, the metrics have gone down. So if you're comparing it like for like, you go, oh my god, my bounce rate's amazing, it's really dramatically improved. It hasn't. It's just that GA4 records it differently, and then basically it's the opposite of the engagement rate, isn't it? Because they've got a new stat called engagement rate. Yeah, but essentially
the difference between the two. So let me talk about the old one. Bounce rate on GA3 used to be anybody who came onto the site that didn't click on anything. So they could be on the site for 5 minutes and they would still be classed as a bounce if they didn't click anything. In new GA4, they were classing someone who's been on the site for 5 minutes as an engaged user. And the reason for that is if they've been on the site for more than 10 seconds, they are classed as an engaged user. So you're getting all these people who are on the site looking, scrolling up and down, who are now classed as an engaged user if they're on the site for more than 10 seconds. So it's obviously going to bring down the bounce rate overall. And when it came out, I did a bit of work to work out what the equivalent were, and that's where we got those figures from. So it gives us an idea of what they are. So they're just a lot lower than you're expecting. You still seem to have the same problems with GA4 that we had with GA3 about sometimes the bounce rate being broken by a pop-up or something that's an interactive event. Same thing happens, and you get like these 1% bounce rates or 2% bounce rates, which are clearly wrong. You are going to see lower figures, but not that much lower. So you still can see those errors in there. So you've got to have a look at that.
If you have a bounce rate in GA4 that's looking like 2%, it's definitely wrong. It's what's that? Cat? There's a cat just come in.
No, there was Mum coming in the curtain. I don't know.
Mother.
Yeah, God.
Bring her in.
No.
Why is
not
she great?
cool.
She should be on the point. What do you mean our mother's not cool? She can sit in the background.
No, I've just set the whole studio up, ready to do the whole thing, and she'll just come in and she'll just talk.
She does like talking. We have a mother that loves to fill silence with speech.
Yeah. I'd
Much
been amazed
like
at both
sons.
of them, to be honest. To be like, my wife she's not a big talker really, but I'm like just driving them to the gym, and I'm like, I've probably spoke more in the car ride than I have in the past 6 months. Anyway, so bringing it back to where, so like I want to talk about a way that we work out how to sell that next click on the category page and the product page, because obviously the people coming to the page who want that product, that's fine, but when they want other products, we need to know how they buy, how people buy your products. And to know how people buy your products, we want to know how they find the product and what they use to search for the product or to filter the product. So the trick of it is to, first of all, you have category pages, and obviously you've got traffic through your category pages, and you have all your filters on your category pages, and you kind of let people use the filters in the normal way. Not everybody's going to use the filters, but some people will. And when they use the filters, they will use some of the filters much more often than the other ones. So let's say we're selling bedding, for example. You will find that people will search probably most of the time by color first, and then probably by thread count or size. And so once you understand how people search for the product, when someone lands on the product page, you want to say something. Let's say everybody searches by color for your product. On your product page, and they've landed on, let's say, a green pair of trousers, and you know that everybody searches by color in trousers, you would want to say, do you want to see other green trousers? And there's a quick link to see other green trousers. Once you know how people shop and how people search for the products, you can then make those quick links available at the top of the category pages and also on the product pages. Because ultimately, that's a great bit of information to find out, because that's how people are going to shop. And that's basically what they've probably done on Google Shopping or even on your category pages, but making it easier for them to do so. A lot of the time, it's kind of like the iceberg technique, where if you get, I don't know, 10% of people using the filters, and there's always going to be like another 30% who would click on those things if they were more easily available, because they didn't know how to shop. They're basically saying, well, this is how most people shop, this is how people do it, and then how they find the product.
You're definitely right. And in just practical terms, you imagine if a customer you did have a physical bricks and mortar and somebody came in, what would be the first question you'd ask? What would you be wanting to know if you're helping them trying to find bedding? What would be the first question that customer? What color? What size? I've got this. So you're thinking about, if that person was stood in front of you, what would help them find the right product? But you know what? Taking a step back, actually, because I think you've missed a vital step, which helps people understand where to focus. Well, yes, because like with most things in life, it's about getting the maximum result for our time. And so, when you're trying to get the navigational flow right, you're ultimately trying to help people find the right product. But you can't focus on the entire site with thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. In some cases, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pages. You've got to know where to go. So I would break it down into a few basic things. What percentage of people land on product, category, or home? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing would be, what device is it on? So is it desktop? Is it mobile? Forget tablet. No one seems to browse on tablets anymore. It seems to be overwhelmingly either mobile or desktop. So now it depends on different demographics, but we had a site business the other day that's doing 15 million in the UK, and they had 77% of people landing on the mobile product page. So an overwhelming majority of people landing on the mobile product page for the first time. So that's your starting point. So that is where you need to focus your time on. And then you can look at the products that people are landing on. You can find that the top 10 products, top 10 pages, the entire website is these 10 products. So therefore where to go and spend the time, which can have the biggest bang for your buck. It's the same with anything. It's the same with the whole business, isn't it? You can focus your attention on, because I think otherwise, if you try and think about it like an overall, the entire e-commerce business, it just becomes this mammoth task of trying to understand, what it is something we're going to roll out. And actually, you can achieve a huge amount by just focusing on those critical pages. And
and like you say, on the mobile, you've got limited space, so you have to make it very easy for people to do. So the breadcrumb has got to be useful. A lot of people's breadcrumbs are terrible. It's basically like home, and then all products, and then the product, and it's like, well, that's not useful.
If you know, people search by long product name, a lot of people put. Now, just to explain, because obviously I know what a breadcrumb is, you know what a breadcrumb is, but what is a breadcrumb? Obviously, two baker's sons, it is not a breadcrumb on the table.
No, it's basically it's the category structure that you're in, put just above the product page. So it'll be like, okay, you went from, as if you went from the home page. It's like, okay, you went from the home page, then you went to this category, then you went to this subcategory, and now you're in this product. And people look to those to see where they are on the site and then navigate out of it. And like we said before, if you know people search by color, or people search by size, or whatever it is, then the breadcrumbs should kind of be a step back from that. So it should be all white duvet covers, and then it should be all bedding, and then it should be home. So it should be in the same way people shop. Yeah. Because otherwise,
we talked about this so long. It's like to me, it's the one of the 101s of e-commerce. Actually, is to make sure those breadcrumbs are right, they're correct, they're not crowded, they're not cluttered, they're in the right place on the mobile, right at the top, and how many times have we seen a mobile product page where they remove the breadcrumbs at the top? So you literally have no idea where you are. So it will be like, and again, I've used this in an idea loads of times, but it'd be a bit like being blindfolded, like parachuted down into a physical shop, and then somebody putting, let's say you're trying to buy some some clothing, and they're parachuting you down and they're showing you this product, and then they're putting the blindfold back on, and then you're expecting you've got a clue where you are. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Or how it relates to the other products, or how it relates to the categories. People shop by brand. Make it easier for people to go and see the brand.
Think about this. When you go into a shoe shop, or you're trying to buy some trainers. There's a good example. You're going into a shoe shop, trying to buy some trainers. Think about how the trainers are displayed in the store, in the sports shop, wherever it is. They're all over. They're all merchandised in terms of different style. These are for running. These are different colours. These are for sport. These are for fashion. These are for hockey. They're very well laid out,
and they're done by gender,
and you think about
as well.
Yeah, and exactly think about how what you're doing on your e-commerce stuff. They land on that product page. You are showing one pair of trainers. People don't buy the first pair of trainers that they see. They want to see lots of them in a very, and that's the key thing, which obviously what the breadcrumbs is, and it brings me on to another point, because I've made some quick notes before we started, that too often than not, people tend to try and do the upsell, and they put a lot of emphasis on doing the upsell. These products go great with this, and people are not quite there yet. The emphasis for me should be on navigational flow. The idea would be that the trainers, here are trainers that are similar and having the category links. That should be higher up and have given a bigger importance. Then these trainers go really well with these trousers. They don't give a damn about these trousers or these leggings yet. They're trying to find the right pair of trainers. So it would be a secondary point, in my opinion, that it would be less weight on the upsell and more emphasis on the navigational flow. As a general, gun to my head, it will be, rather than pushing the upsell, that would not be the priority. It would be, here are the related one. And actually not just doing it as one little carousel. I mean, there's a couple of businesses that stand out to me that do very, very well at navigational flow. One of them is Etsy, and one of them is Wayfair. And they both are really good at the discovery and the natural flow. And it's particularly relevant for them because they have a lot of discovery on the site. But you just have a look at how well Etsy does navigational flow from the product page. And you've got lots of related searches and people who looked at this also looked at these categories, and it isn't just a bunch of products. It's very, very effective. And it's probably overkill for most people because most people don't have that broad depth. They have no alternative. They do it. But to me, it's a masterclass. Those two businesses, Wayfair and Etsy, masterclass of navigational flow. And there's other businesses like First Dibs is very good. And First Dibs is good because they have this really quite prominent. And I would encourage everybody to go and have a look at this. Go onto First Dibs product page and have a look at the top of the product page, and you'll see this little tiny carousel at the top. So right above the product page, above the main image and the title, you'll see items similar to this. And it's very clear what metric they're trying to improve. They're trying to reduce the dead end pages, which is what we often say. Product pages should not be dead end pages. They're trying to reduce the bounce rate and increase the navigational flow. And just think about how you would shop First Dibs is like an antiques art gallery, really, type. Think about how you would shop at an art gallery. You would naturally flow beautifully around this art gallery, and you'd be gliding through, and you'd be, oh, that's a beautiful piece there, and oh, that's lovely. And you look at this, and you sort of, you wouldn't just go and see one piece. You'd be floating around beautifully, flowing.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those. It's just one of those industries where you'd say, I don't know what I like until I see it. So it's art is like that, or antiques are like that, or home decor is like that. So once they know that it's something you like, then they can say, well, if you like that, you're probably going to like this. And so therefore
Yeah.
it's so important for those kind of businesses. It's like if you say, if I say I want to go and buy some art for my wall, it's like, well, what do you want? It's like, I don't know, but when I see it, I'll know. And that's very difficult for someone to go into a website and say, well, what do you want? It's like, I don't know yet. So that once
Yeah.
you've found something you kind of like, then those
Yeah.
websites that are very visual have to
I
do
mean, there's
things
little
like that
things
more so.
that we've done over the years where we've put simple things like trending searches, at top of the search bar, for example.
Yeah.
And the truth of it was sometimes it was trending, sometimes it wasn't. We just made it up. It was the best selling categories, but it gave people a hint to say this is what other people are searching for, particularly in homewares and home decor. It was a really nice,
We're
easy
talking to
way to
basically
navigate people to go.
the almost engagers. So there's people who engage naturally, and there's people who almost engage. And to get the almost engagers, a bit like when we say the almost buyers, the almost engagers are the people who don't know how to get started with their search. They don't know how to get into the site.
Yeah.
And so if you kind of make it easier, well, this is how people shop for shoes. This is how people shop naturally for bedding. This is how people naturally shop for this product. And so you might as well get started here, and that's going to be much better you staying on the site and doing
Yeah.
that
And
search
there's
than
simple
actually going
things.
to Google.
The simple things too would be things like, that site I mentioned before, doing 15 million, 77% of people landing on the product page, and 3% of people landing on the home page, and that's extreme. That's quite extreme. So then, but what they weren't doing, which was so obvious in retrospect when you point this stuff out, when you're looking at the numbers, was that they weren't doing the recently viewed products on the homepage. So people are going to the product page, having a look around, very complicated, thousands, about 10,000 products. Not that makes, the difference, but it was just, you come back to the homepage, you try and find what product you were looking at. No bloody clue. The most obvious one, if you see this, you see the product page is the landing page and the home page is not a key landing page. The homepage is something that helps people continue that navigational flow. So obviously recently viewed as a default should be on the homepage. Again, that's what First Dibs do. You're on the homepage and all your recently viewed. And you don't need to log in to do this, or it just happens. It just does it automatically. I think it's probably worth touching on the little quadrant that we do. We know the little graph that we were doing our deep dives
The
where we
buyer
look at the
type.
time on site, buyer type, the time on site, which is the average, and the number of pages people click on, and we call it the engagement quadrant, and we put it into A, B, C, D, and it's essentially just a little dot, and it says so the average is like 2.5 minutes on the site on average, and 4 pages on average. That's the average, and so sometimes you find that it's extremely to the left. Now, if it to the left for us, it's like less time on site and less pages. Sometimes that can be because that's how the buyers shop. They want to get in, they want to get out, and that's okay. You expect that, but in other cases, if it's not what we expect, it's often because of the navigational flow problem or the first domino, which we haven't positioned. So basically, if people are coming in really quickly and they're not clicking around and they're not hanging around, your conversion rate really bad, really low, we'll look at this quadrant and we'll say, okay, well, are we expecting it to be in the bottom left quadrant, which basically means low time on site and low pages? And if the answer is no, that's weird. That's not how we expect people to shop. I would always go to the first domino, which is positioning, and then immediately the second domino, which is navigational flow, and look at those two first and rule those out. Like, is it a navigational flow problem? Is it a positioning problem? And then you move on to obviously the next domino.
Yeah, so if you've got like an antique site and you've got like antique products and it was behaving like someone who was selling nuts and bolts, where people just wanted a nut and bolt and they were just staying on that page and then disappearing, then you've got something wrong.
Yeah.
Or a fabric shop. People like fabric shops. People like to have a look around to find what
love to
fabric they're going to discover. And if you've got a fabric shop with like one page and then one page, 1 minute on it, you're doing something wrong, because it's not how people want to shop in that industry, and that makes a big
Let me add one
impact.
little caveat to this too. There are certain businesses, and I would say it's where the discovery happens too. So, let's say you are very much an Instagram social business, and there's a lot of discovery that happens in that, and there's a lot of warming up, and sometimes the discovery is done before they get to the site, and they've quite warmed up, and the site then is essentially an order taker. Now, we're fine with that as long as the conversion rate and the ROAS is good. We're okay with that. We'll take the order. But if the discovery is happening more in the site, then we've really got a job to do. I mean, look at some of the other stories that we were chatting about before. The car parts company. It was a game changer when we started to discover the power of navigational flow. I mean, that business went from like £300,000 a month to £1 million a month really quite quickly by really mastering navigational flow, because the discovery was done in the site, because it was a car part. You're looking for brake pads for a particular, or rotors for this particular, Honda Accord. And you had to find the right one and make sure it was going to fit the car, and there were lots of different choices, and that helping that navigational flow was key for two reasons. Number one, it was job to be done. It was reassurance that they needed to find the right part that fit the car, and it was also the anxiety. Well, what happens if it doesn't fit me? And it was really helping them find this is the right part, and that was it.
And this is what else you can get for the car was key. It was key.
Yeah.
Because I think that we did a few things on that, and this was probably about 5 years ago now. But it was a few things. It was making the site faster, making the navigation easier to move around, so that they had 6 minutes on the site, and we thought that they would purchase in 3 minutes, but they didn't. They still stayed on for 6 minutes, but they bought more stuff because they had in their mind allocated that amount to the purchase. They were able to move around. They were able to find a lot more products, and the average order value went up massively, and it went up from, like you say, 300,000 to $1 million a month. There was a couple of other things. There was a better offer architecture change at the same time, but it was one of those things
that was an unexpected stat, actually, that when the site was quicker, that the average order value jumped massively.
Yeah,
and it
I was
wasn't
just expecting the
conversion rate. Yeah, it was. We kind of thought, when will the conversion rate will go up? The conversion rate did a little bit, but the biggest jump was the average order value, and it was obviously because it was a lot easier for people to find and explore other categories that were related to their principal purchase. So the idea would be you're coming in to buy some, an air filter for your car, and it was a methodical problem-solving purchase, and then obviously then you're selling the rotor blades of the oil filter that went with it, and it was because it was so much easier to find those other things. Average order value went up.
Do you know a big mistake that a lot of people make, which you see? I mean, if you talk about it from a physical store, clothing store, you see an outfit in the window of a top, a pair of trousers, and maybe a hat or something, and you think that looks really cool. You go into the shop, and then you've got to search all around the shop for those different items, and you find that the trousers are out of stock, and it's really annoying. The same thing happens in e-commerce. We sell something on Instagram as a lifestyle image of what people want. It might take them to those pair of trousers, but then they can't find the other things. It's very difficult for you to find the other things. So you've got to be very mindful of what is selling the outfit and how you're selling it. So you've got to be able to have get the look and get all those products in the look, or those kind of things, and help people actually get all those products. Because often you'll find, if you look at what's bought together, you'll go, gosh, that product's being weirdly bought with this product. Wonder why that is. And then you take a step back and it's okay, because we're pushing that in a Facebook ad or Instagram ad, and those products are together in that image. But it's really difficult on the site to find those those two products.
What's quite interesting, that's the frequently bought together when you look at the common pattern. You know what's interesting, right? So the old stories of retail, bricks and mortar retail, they would in a supermarket, for example, they would put the milk, because everybody wanted milk. They were coming for some milk. They put milk at the back. Traditionally in supermarket, they'd put the everyday items at the back of the store, hoping that by the time that the customers wandered through to get the milk, they'd see other stuff. and they pick up other things, which, makes sense, doesn't it? But it's very different online because they've got this nanosecond of patience, and the temptation again to go back to another store that's going to serve your needs easier is so overwhelming that you cannot put the milk at the back of the store in the equivalent of online. You've got to bring the milk right to the forefront and make it so easy for people to find, and go with the flow of the river. And the example that we fall back on, we've said this many times over our long career, is the decision of what to do on the homepage banner. Quite often, okay, obviously the rotating carousel, we won't talk about that because we've said it loads, how that reduces the conversion rate. But quite often e-commerce owners will put they will get bored of their homepage and they'll keep thinking, we've got to make it fresh, we've got to make it fresh, we've got to change it. That homepage is boring. And they will put some slightly obscure new product that they don't know whether or not it's going to sell on the homepage banner. And they will replace the big bestsellers, thinking that, people are going to buy the big bestsellers anyway, so we don't need to push that. We'll put this weird, slightly obscure new product that's is a bit niche, it's a bit it's a bit wacky. Let's put that on there, and that's often a mistake because it's not going to. You have to go with the flow of the river, and you have to look at where people go. My default is you want to go with the flow of the river. You want to look at what pages people go to next, and you want to emphasize that. And what you're looking for, I think they also what people search for too. Like if people search for certain things, that tends to give you an idea of what they want. And so that dictates what your navigational categories should be. And if people go from the homepage to, this particular category, that's what they want. So like, homewares, they often look at new and outlet. Like if you want to improve your conversion rate, reduce your bounce rate, then give them what they want. And remember that the average lifetime customer value in 12 months is only 1.2 times a year. They're only buying like 1.2 times. So their homepage, it's fresh, it's always new. So you don't need to fall down the trap of trying to reinvent your homepage all the time, because the first time people see it, it's the first time.
Do you know why it's a mistake? What people think? People think the homepage is the shop window equivalent of a physical store. So the shop window is not the homepage of your store, because the shop window in a physical store is to get the attention of people walking past. Nobody walks past a homepage. They are already on the site, because the shop window of an e-commerce store is your advertising. It's either your advert in Facebook or your post in Instagram, or it's basically your peacocking is done elsewhere. So if you've got a clothes shop, your homepage is not your peacocking. Your homepage is someone who's come in through the door, and it's what they see when they first walk through the door. That's kind of like the homepage. The shop window is no longer the peacock, which is something to get their attention, because they're already there. You kind of feel like, if you've been in retail, you kind of think the homepage has got to be the same as your shop window. It's not. It's not the shop window. It's different. It's like if you walk into, let's say you go into a menswear clothing, in the window they might have some kind of zebra print jacket and some orange trousers or something ridiculous, and then you open the door and you look through, and there's all the shirts there and there's all the trousers there, and that's all the things that normal people buy. That's the homepage. The scary kind of like peacocking thing to get people in, it's different.
It's your social ad or your post. And that actually, the homepage is about navigational flow. Look at somebody like ASOS. Go to the homepage of ASOS. Men, women, navigational flow, isn't it? It's trying to get you into those two camps. It's trying to help you from that.
Well, it's kind of like, who are you? It's who are you? It's like you walk into a shop and it goes, well, are you like, you walk into a clothes shop that sells men's and women's. Like, are you a man or a woman? You just you peel off to the left or the right, don't you? Depending on what you're looking for.
You look at the go into a supermarket and look at the the shelf, the signs above the shelves. Like, what aisle am I going to? Obviously you need to find out where to go because you're inside the shop. It is a different, and generally speaking, is that you go with the flow of the river. You if you want to make the most revenue for the visitor, you make it easy for them to find what they're looking for. and it's an obvious one.
Yeah.
So it's like
and you do it in a way that they buy. You have to find out how they naturally buy the product. You have to naturally work out the way they would discover the product, and then you make it very easy for them to do so. So you're kind of like, it's like the iPhone. The iPhone is very easy to use because you use it intuitively, and that's why everybody likes the iPhone, because it just works. Same with your site. You've got to work out the flow that the buyer would go through to buy the product if they didn't know exactly what they wanted and how they'd find it. And therefore, you then make it easier.
We used to say, do the double gin and tonic test, which I think came into the 5-year-old test, but I prefer the double gin and tonic test because it's a good test. So you imagine that your target market is a middle-aged bloke who is lying on the sofa. He's coming home from work. It's 10 o'clock at night. He's lying on the sofa. He's just had a double gin and tonic, and he's on his phone, and he's chilling out. And it's got to be so obvious how to navigate the site, how to find the right product, that navigational flow. It's got to be just this default path. Like he's half there, he's half watching the telly, he's half, he's had a gin and tonic, he's really chilled out, and you've got to be able to navigate without even thinking. And the equivalent, obviously, or your kids are running around or whatever, or you're walking down the high street and somebody asks you a complicated question, you have to stop to think. Like we used to do the maths test. Like, if something's really hard, you have to stop in the middle of the street thinking about how to answer that maths test.
System two thinking, don't make them use it. Yeah. So effectively, it's about understanding how people shop and actually making it easier for people to go and selling the forward click rather than the back click. And you're going after the almost engagers, really, at this point, because the people who know what they want, they will buy. That's great. But you're going after the almost engagers, and those are the people that if we keep them on the site, we have more chance of adding to the basket, and therefore we have more chance of them actually converting through the sale later on.
Yeah.
Well,
cool.
There we go. Thank you very much, Ian.
No, it's a pleasure, as always. Probably, leave it there if we rabbited on enough. Navigational flow. Funny, isn't it? When you start thinking about navigational flow, you feel like it's it's a sort of quite a light topic, but actually there's a lot to it, isn't there?
There's a lot there.
There's a lot nice there. Few things come out there. Yeah, some big stuff.
Yeah, and it's good.
Cool.
Awesome. I'll see you next week.
All right then. Cheerio.
Cheers.
Say hi to Mum and Dad.
I will. Thank you.
Come in now.